What do you do when you have someone on your team who's underperforming? I mean, it's easy to be a manager when everything's working well and everybody's doing exactly what they are supposed to do. But when that's not happening, well, that's when you earn your money as a manager. So let's talk about this particular challenge, which is a common one that everyone runs into many times in their management career. You've got an employee on your team who is not living up to expectations, right? Who's performing poorly for some reason. Well, the first thing you have to do is determine, are they doing it on purpose? That's a trick question. Of course they're not doing it on purpose. I promise you that you will never in your career manage another human being who, when given the means and the opportunity, won't choose success over failure every single time. Right? This is really important because when you embrace this truth, when you understand this as a manager, it changes how you think about these issues. It changes how you see these issues. Because when you have an employee who's underperforming, and you know that they would be choosing to succeed if they could, that means your role is to figure out what's going on, right? To diagnose what is it that is missing? What do they need that they don't have? What obstacles are they facing that maybe they can't address or they can't remove? Your job is to figure that out and then get them the support or the resources they need so that they can do their job, that they can succeed, because that is what they are wired to do. So let's talk about what that looks like. How do you do that work? Well, in my 20 years of doing this work, of coaching managers, supporting managers in a variety of different ways for a decade as an HR executive, I've seen a lot of these issues. And I can tell you that I would estimate probably 80% of the performance issues that I have seen and helped coach managers through with employees boil down to one cause. And that's that the employee isn't clear about what is expected of them. I know that seems almost too simple or too obvious, but it comes up over and over and over again. So if you have an employee who's underperforming, the very first thing that you must do as a manager is to determine, are they clear? Are they clear about what's expected? Are they clear about what great performance looks like? Are they clear about how their performance is measured? And the way you go about addressing that or diagnosing that is using what I call the clarity check-in. Here's how it works. Prior to the next one-on-one meeting that you have scheduled with that employee, you give them a day or two in advance, and you ask them to put in writing a list of the top 3 to 5 ways that they believe their performance is measured or evaluated. Another way to say that is asking them to put in writing the top 3 to 5 expectations of performance or success in their role. Then you need to do the same thing, same exercise for that employee. You need to put in writing what you believe to be or what you know to be the measures, those 3 to 5 measures of success in their role. And then when you come together for that one-on-one conversation, you basically compare notes. Take their list, your list, and see if those are the same. Now, I'm going to tell you or warn you, they are likely to not be the same. Often, or more often than not, you're going to find that their list and your list have some real misalignments. Now, if there are no misalignments, that's amazing. You're creating great clarity. That's not your issue. But if there are misalignments, if the employee has a different list than you, that means that they are not clear on what's expected. And so in that conversation, you need to create that clarity. When that employee leaves that one-on-one meeting, they should leave with some crystal clarity about what is expected and how their performance is measured. And what you will be shocked to see is that almost immediately you'll see an improvement in performance. Because it makes sense. If you don't know what's expected of you, how are you supposed to meet that expectation? When we're not clear about expectations, often we're pursuing some other assumed expectation. We're going in the wrong direction, and that's not helpful. So, number one, you have to make sure there's clarity of expectation. Now, once you've accomplished that, the second biggest contributor to underperformance that I have witnessed in my career is that the employee, while being clear on what's expected, isn't aware that they're not performing. Right? They think they're doing okay, or they think they're doing fine. They don't realize that there's this problem. And this is a failure of feedback. And so the way that you diagnose this is very similar to the way you diagnose the clarity issue, except you use a performance check-in. And the way the performance check-in works is very, very similar. It's just a different question. So this time, prior to your one-on-one meeting, you ask the employee to put in writing how they believe they are performing on their top 3 to 5 performance expectations or performance measures. And then you, again, do the same thing from your perspective about their performance. Come together in your one-on-one, you compare lists. And you see how clear are they about an understanding of how they're doing. And if there's a gap in those lists, then obviously there's been a failure in feedback. Right? Either they don't have access to get a clear understanding of how they're doing, or you've not been providing them the kind of feedback they need to understand they're falling behind, or they're not performing in the way that they need to be successful. You need to give them that feedback and help coach them so that they can make improvements. So that's the performance check-in. Between those two issues, lack of clarity about expectation, lack of feedback about how I'm doing against those expectations, you will be able to address probably 99% of the performance issues that come up on your team. Now, let me give you an example of what this looks like when it's not done well. It's from my own career many years ago, as this was my first HR management role. I had joined a new team. I was actually new to working in a corporate environment, let alone being a manager and working in an HR team. And when I got to my very first performance appraisal, never had a formal performance appraisal before this. We went through the performance appraisal. My boss said, hey, you're doing great on all these measures of performance for my role. I was a recruiting manager. I was doing great on all those metrics around recruiting. But then she told me that she had dinged me she had reduced my overall performance rating because my peers had been complaining that I am not building the kinds of relationships with them that they want, or I'm not communicating well, or I'm not being as collaborative as they should be. Now, I will let you know, this is the first time I had ever gotten this feedback, or at least gotten it in this kind of formal way. And maybe I was dense at the time, but I didn't realize that this was an expectation of my performance, which clearly it was from my boss. I came to learn that she was getting some drama from my peers about how I was doing my job. And so she offered me this feedback. It dinged my performance, which is in my permanent record. That impacts my raise and my income. And so I can tell you, I got really angry. I got really perturbed. But I was finally clear about what was expected, and I had gotten some feedback about how to fix it. And so it got fixed immediately. Going forward from that day, even though I was upset about it, I was angry about why I hadn't heard about it before that, I went out and I fixed it right away. You don't need to make the mistake that my boss made. Your people don't need to suffer through that kind of experience like I did. You can avoid all of this by simply using the clarity check-in and the performance check-in in that order. When you use those two tools in the way that I've described, you will be able to address almost every performance issue in a way that feels respectful and constructive to the employee, feels like you're in partnership with them, and they will be motivated leaving that conversation to elevate their performance and to be successful so that both they and you can find success in your roles. So take it, use it, solve those performance issues, support your people, elevate their performance. Good luck.